In this video, I'm going to show you the safest way to drive into Mexico from the United States, from Texas and points east. Subscribe to the Slow Boat Sailing channel. Now, a lot of people get really apprehensive about Mexico and driving in Mexico, and I think there's good reason for that. The State Department gives recommendations both to U.S. government employees and U.S. citizens, and this driving path is consistent with those State Department guidelines and should keep you on the safest possible path to central Mexico. So we're going to follow their guidelines going from Nuevo Laredo, that is Laredo, Texas, down to San Luis Potosi, and I'm going to show you a safe hotel right off the highway there, and we're going to use the toll roads whenever they're there. So you want to get a lot of Mexican pesos in Laredo, Texas. That's the best place to exchange your pesos, so you have cash. You don't need to go to cash points. So plan out your trip, and we're going to talk about the process of being able to drive to Mexico in terms of insurance and temporary import permits. But first we're going to talk about the route. And the key thing is the most dangerous thing is when the State Department warns you about kidnapping. Kidnapping is a $1 million mistake. It's scary, dangerous, and it could bankrupt your family for years. So when the State Department warns you about kidnapping and tells you do not travel, you need to respect those guidelines. Crime is a problem, but kidnapping is much, much worse. We're also going to give basic tips on driving in Mexico. Driving in Mexico is more difficult than driving in the United States. It is more risky. You definitely are going to need Mexican insurance for your trip. Okay, so I'm going to read this passage from the State Department. This is why we're taking this route. So, U.S. citizens are advised to adhere to restrictions on U.S. government employee travel. State-specific restrictions are included in the individual state advisories below. U.S. government employees may not travel between cities after dark. U.S. government employees should avoid traveling alone in remote areas. U.S. government employees may not drive from the U.S.-Mexico border or to interior parts of Mexico except daytime travel within Baja California between Nogales, Hermosillo on the Mexican Federal Highway 15D and between Nuevo Laredo, Monterrey on Highway 85D. So even though Nuevo Laredo goes through a state that is do not travel, the State Department is telling U.S. citizens and mandating U.S. government employees that if you're coming from points east of Laredo, Texas, your best entry is Nuevo Laredo, taking 85D to Monterrey, and you go through that small patch of a Mexican state that you should not travel to. So I think you probably need $400 for tolls, maybe round trip. I have to add it up, but it's less than that, maybe $200. But I would say, you want to convert at least 400 pesos. You pay for everything in pesos. You pay for gas in pesos. But the route we're going to take is 85D, 40, and then 57D. And whenever we're given the opportunity, we're going to take the toll road. That's the Quota Road. There's the Libre Road and the Quota Road, and we're typically going to take the Quota Road for the paid highways. You don't need an easy pass. Indeed, there's not really much benefit to having the Mexican equivalent of an easy pass because it's not like there's a fast lane for the quota or toll roads. You just have to wait at the toll road, and then you get through the toll booth. And so if you have cash, it'll be fine. It'll be just as fast as if you get an easy pass. And most of the passes won't be able to be easily topped up for an American. So if you're driving through Mexico, I recommend you stop at the Courtyard Marriott San Luis Potosi. So from Laredo to here is a day drive, even in the wintertime, driving at safe speeds. And so once you get to this hotel, then you can go anywhere in central or southern Mexico. But if you go through Nuevo Laredo to this point, you don't have to get off the freeway very much, or the toll road, the national toll road, and it's right off 57. The issue here is that Google Maps incorrectly puts it how to get there. They're like 15 miles off, so don't rely on Google Maps for this. Type in the actual address. I would recommend, and it's a highway. The federal toll road is a highway, not a freeway, but there's an exit right off the road, so you don't have to go through city streets or anything to get here. So Google Maps is going to tell you wrong. So you might want to use Apple Maps, but I would definitely write in the address. Don't rely on something like Expedia to give you the coordinates or Google Maps to give you the coordinates. You have to get the actual address, and I'll put the address on the screen. Okay, I'm going to give you some general tips for driving in Mexico. First up is the speed. Do not speed in Nuevo Laredo. There are speed traps there, and I saw tons of Americans going way too fast, especially entering Nuevo Laredo from points south, coming back to the U.S., that were pulled over there. Unfortunately, speed limits are not enforced through most of Mexico, so most of your trip on 85, 40, 57 and point south are not going to be enforced. There's only a few places. I think there was a part of like 57 that was kind of north of Mexico City that was enforced, but for the most part it's not. And so there's like the freeway is like the Autobahn. The trucks tend to go right at the speed limit, and then there are really slow vehicles that are going 20 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour zone, and then there are people that are trying to go 95 the entire way. Mexican drivers, unlike U.S. drivers, are less likely to cut you off from the right-hand lane, so they expect you to get over for them. My advice would be just do not speed excessively in Nuevo Laredo. Be aware of where there are speed traps. Try to go the speed limit as much as possible, because it's not safe to drive Mexican highways at 95 miles an hour. But be unaware that there will be people that'll do that, and that's an extra risk factor in your driving. But for the most part, I found Mexican roads very good. Most Mexican drivers are good drivers, but there's that bottom 20% that makes it really dangerous. So you want to be extra defensive in Mexico as a driver, and for sure you're going to need Mexican car insurance. Call up your insurance agent in the US. They're probably going to say there is no coverage in Mexico. To get the temporary import permit, the Bannercito, you're going to need to get Mexican car insurance. You can get supplemental insurance. I think Progressive has a kind of an insurance app that you can use, and they'll point you to the cheapest insurance for your needs. I think they insure you for 6 months, even if you're not going to be there for 6 months, because the tip is for 6 months. Now the temporary import permit from Bannercito, that's going to take a few days to do, and if you have a lien on your car, that'll probably take over a week to get your lender to give you permission if you still have a car loan outstanding. But I think they'll approve the Bannercito even if you don't get permission from your lender, but you're supposed to get permission from your lender. So try to do this like several weeks in advance so you don't run up against deadlines. You do need to have you have to not just pay the Bannercito, the $400 deposit plus like the $100 fee, something it was less than $100 fee. You also need to wait until they give you that blue form that I'm showing you, and then you want to print that out, because you're going to hand that copy when you leave Mexico. Now, when I went into Mexico, they did not check my passport. They didn't check anything. They just weighed me in. But on the way out, you want to give the Bannercito and give up your temporary import permit, so within 10 to 20 business days, you'll get that $400 deposit back from Bannercito. And that's the first thing when you're going back through Nuevo Laredo, you're going to get to the Bannercito. But you have to be there before 8 p.m. at night. So you don't want to be getting into Nuevo Laredo late at night and there's like an hour wait to get to the border if you're there at, dusk. So build that in, that you want to get to Nuevo Laredo before dark, and that the Bannercito is going to close at 8 o'clock, and they're not open I think they open relatively early in the morning, but they're not going to be open if you roll through there at midnight, and then you're going to eat the deposit or have to go back through the border and go through the line again. But once you give them your temporary import permit, then you have to get a new one if you're ever coming back. So if it's like a one-time trip for you, then you want to turn it in, but if you're doing this over 6 months, then you want to wait until the end of the 6 months. The other thing to be on watch out for is the topes in Mexico. So I told you there's really no speed enforcement, but in the towns there's these topes. So you don't want to be going like 80 miles an hour in a town, because you're probably going to hit a tope and you're going to go airborne, right, and destroy your transmission or whatever. So watch for people's lights in towns. Be on the alert that they're probably going to be like a tope every block, even if they're not marked. And those are speed bumps, right, that you have to go over at like 10 miles an hour or you're going to wreck your car or you're going to hurt your car. So be careful for the topes. That's the effective speed limit in towns. But I found on the federal highways, there's typically not any topes, at least on the toll roads, but if you're going through a big town, there may be some topes. And they typically, I think the signage is really good in Mexico. They tell you when it's a good time to slow down. There are reasons for those signs. There's a reason for why you should slow down in those areas. So just don't treat it like the Autobahn. Good luck on your trip into Mexico. Subscribe. Okay. The other thing I should just emphasize, do not drive at night. That's because of the high variability of speeds that people will be on the freeway or on roads. There'll be lanes closed. There will be cattle that'll be walking on the roads. So there's no fences for the sheep and whatever. The sheep can get anywhere. So you're going to either hit somebody stopped at the side of the road, or you're going to hit some cattle, or you're going to hit a person if you're driving at night. And that's the principal reason why you don't want to drive at night in Mexico. So always plan your trips that you're only going to go as far as you can drive during the day. So that's why, you can get to maybe Querétaro or something like that during the summertime, but in the wintertime, you're going to have trouble driving a safe speed to get past San Luis Potosi. Oh, and there's one final thing I should talk about is gas stations. So the gas station attendants will rip you off. So what you want to do, when you get out, you pull into a gas station, they're all full service. You want to get your wallet and your change, your peso change. So you got pesos in your wallet, you got pesos in your change. You gather all that up before you step out of the car. Then you tell them what you want, right? You tell them what kind of gas you want and to fill it up, or whatever the Mexican equivalent of that word is. And then you never take your eyes off the pump readout. So you watch the numbers tick up on the pump and you never take your eyes off that. So the first time I was in Mexico, the first time I filled up, I got ripped off by about $20, I think, something like that. That he changed the numbers. So you never want to take your eyes off the pump. You want to have your change and stuff ready before you step out of the car. And the other thing that the gas station attendants do is they never put the gas cap back on. They never ever put the gas cap back on. So once you have paid them, make sure you put the gas cap back on. So you pay for full service and they don't bother to give the gas cap back on. All right, good luck.